and served in the U.S. Army from 2003 to 2013, which included 3 tours of duty in Iraq. A decorated soldier, Andrew was awarded numerous medals, including 5 campaign stars, Iraq Campaign Medal, the Army Achievement Medal 3 times, the Army Commendation Medal twice, the Army Good Conduct Medal 3 times, Meritorious Unit Commendation, the National Defense Service Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, and the Global War on Terrorism Medal. Andrew had 2 children, Shane Andrew Myers and Donovan James Myers, who were 11 and 13 at the time of the shooting. After serving at Fort Carson in Colorado Springs, Andrew decided to make Colorado Springs his permanent home. He grew up in northern Ohio and grew up spending time outside in the woods, so it's no wonder that Andrew so thoroughly loved Colorado. Andrew was a man of service and believed it was his duty to serve his country, so joining the military was a no-brainer. Much of his time in the service was spent as a fueler for helicopters, living in Germany with his then-wife until they were transferred to Fort Carson. It was around the time they were transferred that Andrew and Tina Myers divorced. She moved back to Ohio with their sons, boys that Andrew loved to help coach their soccer and baseball teams. Andrew leaves behind his children and a sister named Jennifer, who will all miss him fiercely. 42-year-old Jennifer Vasquez was born on January 17, 1973. A Colorado Springs native, Jennifer had 2 daughters at the time of her death, Andrea and Brianna. Her greatest joy was watching her daughters grow into young women. An active church member, Jennifer loved to cook and spend time with her family, but especially loved doing makeup. She was said to wear a smile that could light up her room and was fun to be around. Jennifer wasn't a stranger to struggles, though, and she battled with substance abuse. She was finally on the right path, which was what brought her to the sober living home she resided in on her last day on Earth. Her daughters were in their mid-20s and late teens at the time they lost their mother. Sadly, before Jennifer was killed, 2 of the girls' uncles passed away the previous spring, only a month apart, and they even lost their grandparents, Jennifer's parents, nearly 6 years before. These girls were much too young to suffer such significant losses, and Jennifer will be missed very much. Christy Galella grew up in Poway, California, and lived there for about 13 years before moving to Escondido, California. She played for the Poway Girls Softball League and was quite athletic. Graduating from San Pasqual High School, Christy began working in the music industry and loved promoting new bands. She eventually left that job to pursue her cosmetology license. She moved to Colorado to be closer to her mom. After the move, she underwent gastric bypass surgery and ultimately became addicted to her prescription painkillers due to the pain. This is why Christy was at the sober living home when she was tragically killed and taken from her 2 children, whom she had raised as a single mother their whole life. Sadly, Christy's grandmother passed away just a few weeks before her own death. On her last day alive, Christy was incredibly excited about a girls' day out with her mom, who was due to pick her up a mere hours after being shot to death. Christy was only 34 years old, and her loss will be deeply felt by her family and friends. Colorado Springs is the largest city in Colorado by land area, sprawling over 195 square miles. It's the most populous municipality of El Paso County, and is also the county seat. Situated approximately 60 miles south of Denver, Colorado Springs sits 1 full mile above sea level. The city became incorporated on June 19, 1886, and had a population of a hair under 500,000 in 2019. A beautiful area, the Southern Rocky Mountains, is located just to the west of the city, which is known for its numerous bike trails, open spaces, and parks. Colorado Springs has an average of 243 sunny days per year and receives around 16.5 inches of rain per year. Interestingly, the city is one of the most active lightning strike areas in the entire United States. The city has experienced tremendous growth in recent years, leading to overcrowded roads, higher crime, and government budget issues. The economy is mostly driven by tourism, high-tech industry, and the military. Several events occur in the city each year, including a comic book and science fiction convention called Galaxy Fest, a hot air balloon festival called the Colorado Springs Labor Day Liftoff, a Greek festival, a pride parade called Pride Fest, and the Steers and Beers Whiskey and Beer Festival. Colorado is full of beer lovers, boasting craft and microbreweries all over the state. There are 30 located just in Colorado Springs alone. Most notably, the city is nicknamed Olympic City, USA, as it is the headquarters of the United States Olympic Committee and the United States Olympic Training Center. Colorado City is also home of the headquarters of the United States Anti-Doping Agency. Finally, Colorado Springs is home to the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame and headquarters of the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, making this an enjoyable and adventure-filled place to visit and live. Mark's life growing up wasn't easy, yet it wasn't the worst upbringing we've seen in other shootings we have covered. His mom, we will simply call her Mom for the purposes of this story, struggled mightily from alcoholism. During her first marriage, Mom bore 2 sons, Mark and his brother. At the tender age of 17, she was married to the first husband for about 12 years, before they eventually divorced. Mark graduated from Sisters High School in Sisters, Oregon, in 2000. Before finally moving to Colorado Springs with his mom, Mark lived in Eugene, Oregon, and attended college classes, although he didn't finish college. Eventually, Mom remarried a man with 3 children, so Mark's family more than doubled with this union. Growing up, Mark liked to watch sports and play video games. He loved all kinds of music. In the early 2000s, he was in a Christian band called Not All Related, and was incredibly talented at playing the guitar. Mom reports that Mark had a photographic memory. She fondly recalls that Mark was the only person she knew that would stop at a theater to buy popcorn without going to the movie. The elder sibling, Mark, was 3 years older than his brother. A dark-haired young man, Mark became more troubled as he grew older. Mental health and addiction issues ran in the family, and in fact, Mark's grandfather, Mom's dad, was an addict with mental health issues of his own as well. Diagnosed with at least bipolar disorder, Grandpa was arrested several times for creating disturbances and petty theft, and suffered from visual and auditory hallucinations, as well as severe paranoia. He was known to abuse prescription medications, and was hooked on amphetamines, often living in halfway houses for addicts. Once Grandpa was living in a halfway house, he attempted suicide by overdosing on pills. It wasn't something new. Grandpa had tried this multiple times before. However, this time in the halfway house, he took pills that had a built-in time delay. Not leaving a note, Grandpa went to bed but woke up the next morning feeling just fine. He sat at the table, reading the paper and drinking coffee, when suddenly the medications, or pills he took, started to kick in. Grandpa clutched his chest, as his face was rapidly turning beet red. He was rushed to the hospital by ambulance, but unfortunately, it was too late. Grandpa had died at only 47 years old. Mark's mom worked as a freelance writer, and she even wrote a book about her struggle with alcoholism. In 2009, Mark traveled with her to help promote the book.
It kind of put him in the spotlight, writing about her son, and excerpts about her son. And I'm sure that made him feel kind of out of place, because he was, uneasy about it.
In December of 2014, Mom and Mark's stepfather moved from Colorado Springs to New York, leaving Mark behind in Colorado. Despite having regular contact with Mom, Mark's family knew that he was going on a downward spiral. Mom had even told Mark's ex-girlfriend Elizabeth to stay away from him, because she knew Mark was acting strange and might be mentally unstable. She said to Elizabeth many times to be careful, believing that Mark had, quote, escalated to a new level, and told her to do everything you can to avoid contact with him, which it appears she adhered to. Mark's behavior was becoming increasingly alarming in days leading up to the shooting. His manic episodes seemed to be happening with a greater frequency, so much so that Mark's stepdad and brother flew to Colorado Springs on the very day of the shooting because they wanted to try to get Mark voluntarily hospitalized. You see, Cedar Springs Memorial Health Center initially told Mom that because Mark wasn't a threat to himself or others, the police wouldn't assist with getting him to the facility. Mark hadn't made actual, direct threats, and the family couldn't prove that he was dangerous. But he was dangerous. Mark was having manic delusions and had guns. A self-described big, friendly giant. Mark was big, standing at 6 feet, 5 inches tall. 2 days before the shooting, Mark started a blog, and his first post was a rambling one, where he spoke out angrily against religion, the government, and his father. He further expressed frustration and anger against a megachurch pastor in California. On the very same day he posted his first blog post, Mark posted a very cryptic video on YouTube that lasted nearly a minute. In the video, he was pacing inside his apartment, ranting about how he sent his dad a critique of a sermon that the California's pastor gave. It seems that Mark's father was allegedly a follower of this pastor, whose congregation believed in supernatural revival. Mark was outraged that his dad didn't respond to the critique, and the blog was his way to express that anger. The blog's post name was, "Is My Dad in a Cult?" And even worse, "Is it satanic?"
Alright, hey folks, this is getting my blog live. Trucks and trucks and lots of trucks. No, but I did want to dissect just the beginning of a sermon given by a Pastor Bill, a guy that my dad has been following, taking ideas from for 10 years at least. He and his family, 2 kids. I've been ignorant of it for a long time, so I wanted to look at it, and I challenged him just to look at 15 minutes of this sermon. I didn't pick a random one. It had, over 60,000 views. Been waiting and haven't heard anything. So I was going to just post my reply, and I guess that's how I'll start my blog. The blog is just going to be me with video camera, and that'll be it. We'll see what happens.
Before his apparent mental health break, Mark lived a sparse and modest lifestyle. He lived in a few different apartments and worked in the insurance field. Interested in dating, he maintained a profile on eHarmony.com, where he described himself as a recovering alcoholic who was a Christian. On the same profile, Mark stated, quote, "I'm not arrogant or aloof. I'm just shy around new people in large group settings." He was open and honest, admitting to past struggles with substance abuse, and how he was hoping to use his struggles to help others by becoming a sponsor to another alcoholic at some point through the AA program. Mark attended AA meetings regularly, yet for some reason, he just stopped going about 2 months before the shooting. At the same time, Mark was becoming more manic, and Mom was genuinely concerned that he would lose his job due to his worsening state. The last thing Mark's family ever thought was that he could be capable of such awful violence. They were worried sick about him and his mental state, but simply never conceived the idea that he could do such a thing. Diagnosed as bipolar in his early 20s, Mark abused alcohol and drugs in his younger years. He gave up on college and turned to drugs and alcohol, although the reason why remains unclear from research uncovered for this case. Growing up, Mark was introverted and very moody, considering himself a loser. At one point, Mark did a 3-month intensive inpatient treatment in California, but on the very first night out of treatment, he consumed alcohol. This caused Mark to struggle for many years. Though Mark's mental health and substance abuse were like a roller coaster, in 2007 or 2008, Mark moved in with Mom in her Colorado Springs home. There, he stopped drinking and started attending much-needed AA meetings. He was becoming successful at work, moved into his own house, found a girlfriend, and got his insurance license. Yes,